Hello, I'll be telling you about Saint Francis of Assisi. The first name that was given to him was actually, he was named after John the Baptist by his mother, and then his father, not wanting a religious son, renamed him Francesco a little bit after that. Well, his family was a wealthy family. His father was being a cloth merchant, a very successful cloth merchant, and he grew up partying, drinking, being known to party and drink by the people in the town. And when he was about 20 years old, he became a prisoner in a town-to-town skirmish. And whenever he was ransomed by his family, he wanted to become a soldier in the military. Well, while he was on this, he had to travel back then, and it was slow traveling. He was on his way to become a soldier, and he had this dream, or this voice, this very powerful voice, because it had to be powerful for it to be in a dream to get him, that told him to turn around. It wasn't what was for him, and he did it. Well, he didn't really know what to do then, so he was out looking, I guess, and he went on a pilgrimage to the tomb of Saint Peter. And after seeing the meager offerings, it just stuck in his head that why would there be such meager offerings? Well, even when he came back, he was religious, was praying in the church of his town, and heard the voice again. This time it told him, "Go, Francis, and repair my house," which, as you see, is falling into ruin. And Francis took this to mean the literal building he was in, that church of his town, because it was kind of falling apart. Well, he immediately went home or to his father's shop, grabbed some cloth. Resources said that some of them say that he grabbed just the finest cloth, the finest red cloth specifically, and other sources just say he grabbed a bunch of cloth, and yet others say it took all the cloth. And then he rode into town on a horse and sold it all. Again, resources are vary here. Some of them say he sold the cloth and the horse, and some say he just sold the cloth. And yet some others say that he not only sold the cloth, but he bought the stones to rebuild the church. Well, whenever he came to the church, the priest refused whatever Francis returned with, saying that he shouldn't accept it because of how he had gotten it. He basically stole from his father. Well, Francis, knowing that he was in trouble, ran away and hid in a cave for about a month. He had to come back because he didn't know how to survive out in the wild. His father caught him, beat him, and locked him up. He was shortly released by his mother when his father wasn't home, and he went into the church to request sanctuary. His father, trying to get pretty much the lawyers and judge at the time, was went to this church to get Francis to pay for what he had done, and Francis pretty much disowned his family. He didn't want any inheritance. He even took the clothes off his back that he was wearing and to become a religious man. And he started off with absolutely nothing. He worked at a little monastery for a short time, and he, still thinking that the voice telling him to rebuild meant that literal church, he went around begging for the stones to rebuild that church. And he eventually did rebuild that church, and throughout his life he rebuilt some more churches. But by then he had realized that the voice wasn't meaning the literal building, but the people to go around preaching. Well, he attracted a following because he was out preaching in pretty much beggar's clothing, and he eventually attracted a following. When it had gotten up to 11 people besides himself, making it 12, the number of disciples there were, they went to get it finalized as an order, or authorized by an order by Pope Innocent III, and he called this order the Friars Minor. Minor didn't mean like a small order or a minor or a not an important order. At the time, minor meant more like poor, more associated with the beggars. Well, after a while, they eventually attracted a woman to the way that they were living, because up until this point it had been just men, and this led him to create another order that he called the Poor Clares. And Claire was the name of that first woman that they attracted to the way of life. The friars minor are just men, and the Poor Clares are just women. And then later on in his life, he was in this little town called Camara preaching, and the whole congregation that he was preaching to were so moved that they literally begged to join his order, which led him to create this third order that was named the Brothers and Sisters of Penance. He died at about 40 something years old, which compared to nowadays isn't, it was middle age, but then that was pretty much old age because they didn't live very long. So he started off living a life of a wealthy son, but he chose to give it up for his religion to live a life of poverty because of his strong beliefs. And his beliefs were so strong and his preaching was so strong that he was able to acquire several followings throughout his life, which that pretty much sums up